Hello and welcome to Morten's Corner. In this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about ClickLearn Cloud versus ClickLearn On-Premise from a practical perspective. So in the scope of today, we'll be talking a little bit about how the different practicalities is from cloud to on-premise. We'll be discussing some of the limitations, the differences, and the advantages. Then I'll talk a little bit about a hybrid versus a reverse hybrid approach. Then we'll be talking about the installation of ClickLearn itself, on-premise versus running the cloud version. And then we'll talk a little bit about best practices for collaboration, because they differ a lot between the two versions. So let's go ahead. So to go over some of the stuff for cloud, you have full collaboration support, which you do not on-premise. There is no collaboration on-premise. When you start a project on-premise, you are asked where you want to save it. You will then save it locally on your PC. You can then, if you want to share those files from your ClickLearn, you can then take out one recording file and put it on a file server for someone to grab, or you can email it or put it on SharePoint or whatever way you want to share it, right? Then the other author, they can then import it into their localized instance of their ClickLearn Studio, and now you have two unique copies of the same file. So you have to have a really high data discipline to work in a collaborative manner on-premise, right? Another thing you will forego is versioning. There is no versioning on-premise. But on the cloud, you can, every time you save a recording, it increments its version number. So you have like 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and it goes on forever. And you can always restore to any point. When you restore a version, it increments the version in number. So you have unlimited layers of versions for recording, right? Which you do not on premise. There's none of that. Then you have the cloud producer. So when you click produce with a ClickLearn Cloud, you can shut down your PC, come back the next day, start up ClickLearn, and it's going to tell you, hey, we're done producing. When you do it on premise, then you have to have your computer running, which is, fine. If you have like a VM or something like that, then it's no problem, right? It's produced locally. Another thing for collaboration is, of course, you have multi-user support. You can do commenting, you can use the tasking system, things like that. I'll leave a link to a video describing all this up here. None of this is available on-premise. You are forgoing these things. If you have our enterprise subscription model, you will have MP4 enabled, and you can use the MP4 files. On the cloud, there's a single-threaded production, because if we were using multi-threaded, it will just, the whole production server would be utilized producing that one video, right? Because video rendering is threaded, yeah? But when you do it on premise, it's multi-threaded. So it will just go balls to the walls, producing the MP4 file. So that's a plus side for the on-prem. It's gonna be faster, most likely, when you produce on-premise if you have a beefy computer. Then I want to talk a little bit about retention as well, right? So we talked about the versioning. The same goes for backups. So if something goes wrong in your project, you accidentally delete everything, something awful happens, whatever, we have backups for you, and we can always restore your files. Not a problem. If you have it on premise, it's all on you. It has to be managed in-house. So yeah. We can't really help you if something goes wrong, because it's on your machines. Another thing is project management. When you're running on cloud, you have an easier way to manage your projects, of course, because you can create authoring groups. You can say, okay, the salespeople, they will be working on this project, and then we're going to invite some users to this project, and then they will collaborate together. And as a project manager, I can also say, okay, well, we need this extension that we have in our system. We need our vendor to come in and document that, but they should not see all our other stuff. They should only document this part. So we'll give them a consultant access just to this project, and we will cross-reference the recordings and pull them into our main project So they can always come in and update it. We just produce our main project, that's all we worry about, then everything's updated. Stuff like that you can also do on cloud, you cannot do that on premise. I'll leave a link to a video up here regarding how you can project manage in ClickLearn Cloud. Lastly, on premise, a big difference is that if you produce with the Microsoft Voices, then nothing will leave your company. When you produce with not the Microsoft Voices, some other options, you are sending us a text string. So basically the text block or the step that you clicked on, you'll send us the text string and we'll send you back an audio file, right? But when you do it on premise using Microsoft Voices, then it's locally produced on your machine, meaning it's using the built-in Microsoft Voices, which honestly sound like something robotic from the 90s. They get the job done, but they do sound rather dated compared to our extremely professional, modern sounding standards, if I must say so myself. Then we have the two hybrid approaches. There is a hybrid where that's probably the most common one you'll see used in terms of on-prem, where you're using our cloud version of ClickLearn, but then you're producing your content to be hosted on premise, right? We also have a reverse hybrid. We do see that used where people have the on-premise license of ClickLearn. They're running everything on-prem, but then they publish it to the cloud, right? So they produce and they publish it up to our cloud. The benefit of publishing it up to the cloud in a reverse hybrid manner is that you actually get some of the version management for your publications, right? So if you have a bunch of publications, you reproduce your project, you publish it again, then you get incremented versions of your published content, which you can also restore different versions of. But of course, you still do not get the file versioning, you just get the publication versioning, right?
Caution: the user experience panel is not available for on-premise licenses.
So, let me just go back and just show you real quick how an on-premise version would look. So let's just boot up this machine here. When you start your on-premise ClickLearn, you will create a project, of course. Now, when I create a project, I'll just go through this real quick. I'll be asked to give it a name. All right, and now you can see I'm asked where I want to store it. So by default, it's going to go to new project. I can, of course, change the path where I want to store it. For now, this is fine for me. I'll create it. And you'll see, there it is. Let me open up one of my projects here. You'll see I have one file. What I can do is that I can go locally and I can find my projects. Let's go ahead and do that. So the layout of the projects are the same as they are on the cloud. You may not really see this. You do if you go to the administration module of ClickLearn. It's normally down here. You don't see it on-prem, but basically it has the same folder structure. But under recordings, you have the file. So yeah, I could take this file, send it to a colleague, say, hey, could you please revise this? Send it back and I'll include it in our main project because I'm the one responsible for publishing our project. Everyone else just edits the files and send them to me, for example. I could do that. To just show you the Microsoft Voices, if you're interested, you would come to text-to-speech settings for your projects, edit narrative voice, and they're all the way down the bottom. So these are the local ones. This is what you want to use if you don't want us to produce the voices for you. If you're a very secure organization, then this is what you should do, right? You will be using these voices. So yeah.
This may apply to organizations such as government agencies, aerospace, defense and military, and other organizations which do not permit sending or storing data outside due to law or security.
Using ClickLearn on-premise, you will still need an internet access when you start the application. So you'll still need to be authenticating your license versus a licensing server. That's the only time you'll be connecting to the internet, in theory, using this. Otherwise, everything is run locally on your computer. So that's it. All right, let's talk a little bit about the ClickOnce versus the MSI on-premise. So sometimes there are some confusion. We have two different versions of ClickLearn, right? So this is the MSI version. If you run MSI, you can still run a cloud-enabled license. It's just a matter of how you run the ClickLearn application itself. If you run our ClickOnce application, you can also run on-premise. You can also cross it around like this, right? The ClickOnce application auto-updates. The MSI version does not. Some organizations, they block the use of ClickOnce, so you cannot run it. And some extremely secure organizations who need to enable policies for every single executable file, they would need to use the MSI, because the MSI is installed permanently on your computer. It's installed on the program files, just like any other program. And you can easily apply security permissions, antivirus permissions, whatever you need to that specific file, being clstudio.exe. You'll see it down here, right? Let's go and find it. ClickLearn Studio, and then we have CL Studio somewhere down here. There it is, right? Here is the executable. Yeah, this gives you a permanent location to be able to apply permissions or whatever to this file. So that's how they're different. Yeah. Getting the MSI, you will come into your portal. You will click on Releases. You'll click on Attain MSI, and then you just click the latest version or another version if you, for one reason or another, prefer one of the other versions. That's it. You would have to do that manually every 2-3 weeks whenever we update. When we do update, you will be notified when you start ClickLearn. You will be told that you are running an outdated version. We have a new version. We'll tell you what's fixed in it, so you can kind of choose whether or not you think it's worth upgrading to it. And yeah, that's it. Then you can either download and install it yourself if you have admin rights, or if you're in a managed organization, you would have your IT download, package it, and deploy it or publish it to your software server. So you can either grab it yourself or it's pushed to your PC, whichever way they do it. If you click on Home, you can click on Download Attain up here. This will then download the ClickOnce version, right? So that's how they work. So coming back to best practices. Best practices for cloud, for collaboration. I touched upon it in the 2 videos I linked to. And your customer success manager will likely also have given you some guidelines on how to best use it for cloud. On-premise, things are a little bit different. On-premise, I'd recommend that you, for your very strict data management, right? Because if you're creating unique copies of files with different versions, and you want to send it back and forth to each other, you can either use the metadata in ClickLearn. So when you enable metadata in ClickLearn, you can apply, for example, a revision version, and you can increment the revision version every time, so that you know whenever you import a copy, you can see exactly which version is on. You could either append comments to it if you wanted to. So when those are written directly into the file itself, into its XML backbone. So when you give it to another author, it's gonna import that metadata as well. Of course, they'll need metadata enabled in their project. More on that up here. I'll leave a link to a video regarding metadata. That's one way to track the changes. I'd also recommend that you somehow either keep a sheet on SharePoint or just an Excel sheet or something like that can kind of give you an idea of who's currently have a recording in which version, who has it quote unquote checked out, because there is no way to check a recording out. So let's say a file is checked out by someone in your sheet. That means they are working on it currently, no one else should work on it until they checked it back in, and it's then being either sent out by someone, or they can then go and they can go and grab it from a location which is also specified in that Excel sheet, for example. You probably have a better idea of how to work with this kind of stuff, but yeah, it's working without cloud. I mean, it can be a little bit challenging. Can be a little bit challenging because, you know, a lot of the old problems are solved by modern technologies such as cloud content, right? And check-in, check-out features such as we have in ClickLearn, similar to SharePoint. So yeah, but I wouldn't say you'd have to reinvent the wheel or something like that, but you may need to really think about how you approach it when you work multiple authors on single recordings when everyone has their own version of it. I mean, I'm sure you can understand how that can be complicated without a really strict data discipline. With that being said, the on-premise version is it's really fast. It's reliable. It's great. It has a lot of the same features as the cloud one does. They're just different. So whichever fit your corporate way of working, go for it. I'm sure it'll be fine. If you are to convert, you can convert, of course, both back and forth. So what you'll typically do is that you will contact ClickLearn support and you will tell them, hey, we would like to convert our license to local, or we would like to convert our license to on-premise, whatever you had. The procedure is the same. You will export your projects, and then you will let us know when you have exported them. Once you've exported them, don't use ClickLearn until we have converted your license. We will let you know when it's done. Typically it takes 24 to 48 hours. Normally we just say 48 to be sure. That's what you can expect at least. Then we'll let you know when it's done. Then you can import your projects again, either on-premise or onto the cloud. If you import them onto the cloud, then you can of course then set up your authoring groups. You can add people to your project and stuff like that. If you do it on-premise, well, then you can share the project zip file, and then you can share it across so everyone can import it who needs to work on it, right? That's how you could do it if you wanted to. Just to quickly show you how you can import and export your projects. So basically come in here to ClickLearn, find the project you want, click on the three dots, and you select Export Projects. In here I normally just select everything, and then I click on Export. It will then ask me where to save it, and it is then exporting. When it's done, it's basically generating a zip file in the cloud, and then it's downloading it to that location. When it's done, it'll give you a little notification, or you can just minimize ClickLearn, and if you refresh the folder later, you'll see the file in there. Importing is the same thing. You click on the three dots, you select Import Project, and then you just go to the folder and find the project zip file, and that's it. It will then import. It can take a bit of time if you're importing to the cloud, of course, depending on your upload speed, because you're throwing it all back on online. But of course, if you're importing locally, it goes pretty quick. So that's it. So thank you for watching this video on cloud versus premise. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to put them on the community or leave them on comments on this video. And yeah, you have a wonderful day. Thank you.